The cargo ship Meridian's Edge drifted through the asteroid field like a metal whale navigating through floating rocks. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the observation window, watching the scanner sweep across the debris-filled space ahead. 3 days into what should have been a routine supply run to the mining colonies, and they were already behind schedule. Another distress beacon, Captain, called out Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the communications station. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, filtering through the static.
This one's different though. Not human origin.
Sarah turned from the window, her dark eyes narrowing. In her 15 years of deep space transport, she'd learned to be cautious about unknown signals.
Pirates often used fake distress calls to lure in merchant vessels.
But something in Marcus's tone suggested this wasn't a typical trap.
What kind of different? She asked, walking over to his station.
Marcus pulled up the signal analysis on his screen.
The waveform looked unlike anything in their databases.
It pulsed in a strange rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, but with complex harmonics that seemed to carry emotional weight. The computer can't identify the source species, but the universal translator is picking up fragments.
Something about pain? And abandonment?
Marcus frowned at his readings.
Captain, I think whatever's sending this is hurt badly. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her research tablet in the corner of the bridge.
As the ship's xenobiologist, she'd seen her share of alien lifeforms during their stops at frontier colonies.
May I hear the signal? Marcus routed the audio through the bridge speakers.
What filled the air wasn't quite sound in the traditional sense. It was something deeper, a vibration that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the nervous system. Even filtered through their equipment, it carried an unmistakable sense of suffering and desperation. Jesus, whispered Chief Engineer Tom Rodriguez, who just entered the bridge for his shift report.
That's not mechanical. That's alive.
Sarah felt her chest tighten. The sound reminded her of a wounded animal she'd found as a child, a dog that had been hit by a transport and left to die. She'd carried it 3 kilometers to the veterinary clinic, and the gratitude in its eyes when the pain finally stopped had stayed with her for decades.
Can we triangulate the source? She asked.
Already on it, Marcus replied, his fingers flying over the controls. It's coming from the far side of that large asteroid cluster.
About 40 kilometers from our current position.
Could be a trap, warned Security Chief Janet Morrison, entering the bridge with her usual cautious demeanor. She'd served in the Colonial Defense Force before joining merchant crews, and paranoia had kept her alive through 3 separate pirate encounters.
Could be, Sarah agreed. But that signal doesn't sound like any technology I've ever heard. Elena, what's your professional opinion?
The xenobiologist had been studying the audio pattern on her tablet.
The harmonic structure is too complex for artificial generation.
This is biological communication, probably from a species with a highly developed emotional range.
And, Captain.
She paused, looking troubled.
I think it's calling for help.
Sarah made her decision the way she always did, with her gut. Set course for the signal source. But keep our weapons online and be ready to jump if this goes bad. The Meridian's Edge changed course, its fusion engines humming as they navigated through the asteroid field. As they got closer to the signal source, the distress call grew stronger, and, with it, the sense of urgency that seemed to pulse from every speaker.
Captain, I'm picking up debris on the scanner, reported Navigator Lisa Park. Looks like the remains of a ship. Dig 1. The viewscreen flickered to life, showing the aftermath of what must have been a massive battle. Twisted metal fragments drifted in a loose cloud around one of the larger asteroids. The pieces were clearly alien in origin, with flowing curves and organic-looking hull patterns that no human shipwright would ever design.
That's a Kithaeron vessel, Elena said, studying the debris field.
Or was.
They're one of the more aggressive species in this sector. Known for their military prowess and, well, their use of biological weapons.
Biological weapons? Tom asked nervously. Living creatures bred and modified for warfare. Think of them as soldiers that happen to be alien animals instead of people. Elena's expression was grim.
The Galactic Council banned the practice decades ago, but some species still use them. As they moved deeper into the debris field, the scanner began picking up a stronger signal. Not the distress beacon, but something else.
Something large and very much alive.
There, Lisa pointed at the main screen. On the surface of that asteroid. They all stared at what their cameras revealed. Partially buried in the rocky surface was something that defied easy description. It looked like a massive creature, easily 30 meters long, with dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Multiple limbs, some ending in what appeared to be weapon systems, others in grasping appendages. It was clearly built for war, but now it lay motionless except for the faint rise and fall that indicated breathing. "That's a Kitharan war beast," Elena whispered. "I've only seen pictures in classified military reports. They're supposed to be nearly indestructible." "Well, this one's been destroyed pretty thoroughly," Tom observed. "Look at those wounds." Indeed, the creature was covered in massive burns and gaping tears in its armor-like hide. One of its weapon limbs had been completely severed, and a large section of its back showed exposed tissue beneath the damaged scales. "It's still alive though," Sarah said quietly. "That distress signal is coming from it." "Captain," Janet said firmly, "we need to consider the implications here. That thing was designed to kill. If we bring it aboard..." "If we leave it here, it dies," Sarah interrupted. "Look, I know the risks. But we're not the kind of people who leave wounded beings to die in the cold of space." Marcus had been monitoring communications. "Captain, I'm picking up long-range chatter. Kitharan fleet movements about 6 hours out. If they're coming back to recover this thing, then we need to make our decision now," Sarah concluded. "Elena, is there any way to safely transport something that size?" The xenobiologist was already running calculations on her tablet. "Our cargo hold could accommodate it, but we'd need to modify the atmospheric controls. The life support systems can handle non-human biochemistry, but something this large will require significant power allocation." "Tom, can our systems handle it?" The chief engineer studied the readings from their scanner. "It'll strain our generators, but, yeah. We can do it. Though I have to ask, Captain, what exactly is our plan here? We can't exactly drop a war beast off at a medical facility." Sarah looked at the creature on the screen again. Despite its fearsome appearance, there was something almost pathetic about its condition. Abandoned by its creators, left to die alone in the void. It reminded her too much of that injured dog from her childhood. "We save its life first," she said. "Then, we figure out the rest." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Tom and his engineering team worked to configure the cargo hold for their unusual passenger, installing additional life support systems and reinforcing the containment barriers. Elena prepared medical supplies, though she admitted she had no idea what might work on Kitharan physiology. Janet organized security protocols, setting up monitoring systems and ensuring their weapons could target the cargo hold if necessary. She wasn't happy about the situation, but she respected Sarah's decision enough to make the best of it. The most challenging part was actually extracting the creature from the asteroid surface. It had apparently crashed with such force that parts of its body were embedded in the rock. Using the ship's mining lasers, they carefully freed it while monitoring its vital signs through their scanner. It's regaining consciousness, Elena reported as they maneuvered the war beast into their cargo hold using the ship's heavy-duty manipulation arms. Heart rate increasing, neural activity spiking. "Is that good or bad?" Sarah asked. "With something designed for warfare? Probably bad for us." As the cargo hold sealed and the atmosphere adjusted to support the creature's breathing, they all gathered around the monitor stations to observe their patient. The war beast's eyes opened, revealing intelligence that was both alien and disturbingly familiar. It looked around the cargo hold, taking in its new surroundings. Then, somehow sensing the cameras, it looked directly at them. The distress signal changed, becoming less desperate but more complex. The universal translator struggled with the new pattern. "It's trying to communicate," Elena said, studying the readings. "The signal structure is becoming more sophisticated." "What's it saying?" "I'm not sure yet. But, I think it's asking why we helped it." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The creature wasn't just intelligent, it was emotionally sophisticated enough to understand the concept of altruism from strangers. That changed everything. "Can we communicate back?" she asked. Elena's fingers flew over her tablet. "I can try to modulate our communication systems to match its bioelectric frequency. It might take some time to establish a proper dialogue." As they worked on establishing communication, the war beast remained still, watching them through the cameras. Its breathing had stabilized, and some of the smaller wounds seemed to be healing on their own. Whatever the Kitherans had done to create it, they'd built impressive regenerative capabilities into its biology. "Captain," Marcus called from his station, "I'm monitoring Kitheran fleet communications. They're definitely heading this way, but they're not mentioning the war beast. It sounds like they think it was destroyed in whatever battle happened here." "So they abandoned it," Tom said angrily. "Left their own creation to die." "That's military thinking for you," Janet added grimly. "When assets become liabilities, you cut them loose." Sarah studied the creature on the monitor. Despite its massive size and obvious weapons systems, there was something almost vulnerable about the way it watched them. Like it was waiting to see if these strange new beings would prove different from its creators. The communication system beeped, indicating Elena had established a basic link. "I've got a primitive translation matrix running," she announced. "It's not perfect, but we might be able to exchange basic concepts." "Try it." Elena activated the system, sending a simple mathematical sequence to establish intelligence contact. The response was immediate, the same sequence, but modified in a way that showed understanding and added complexity. Then, the creature sent something new. The translator displayed, "Why? Not Kitheran. Not no." Sarah looked at her crew, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. They were about to engage in what might be the first interspecies conversation of its kind. "Tell it," Sarah said slowly, "that we help because it's the right thing to do." Elena translated and transmitted. The response came back quickly, "Right thing? Not understand. Explain." And so began one of the strangest conversations in human history, conducted in broken translations between a human merchant crew and an alien weapon of war that had never encountered the concept of compassion from strangers. As the hours passed, they learned that the creature called itself something that roughly translated to Thunder of the Void. It had been created in biological factories, trained from birth to be a weapon, and had never experienced kindness from any being. The concept of helping someone without personal benefit was completely foreign to its understanding. More importantly, they learned that it had been abandoned not due to damage, but because it had refused to carry out an order. The Kitheran fleet had been targeting a civilian colony, and Thunder of the Void had balked at attacking non-combatants. "It has a conscience," Elena marveled as she studied the translation logs. "They created a weapon with the capacity for moral judgment, and then abandoned it when that judgment conflicted with their orders. That's the stupidest military strategy I've ever heard," Janet observed. "Why give a weapon the ability to say no?" "Maybe they didn't realize what they were creating," Sarah suggested. "Or maybe conscience was an unintended side effect of the intelligence they needed for complex tactical thinking." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent beep from the navigation station. Lisa looked up from her console with worry written across her face. "Captain, we've got multiple ships on long-range sensors. Kitheran military formation, heading straight for our position." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "How long until they get here?" 4 hours, maybe 5. "Can we outrun them?" "Not with the extra weight and power drain from our passenger," Tom answered grimly. Sarah looked at the monitor showing Thunder of the Void. The creature had somehow sensed the change in mood among the crew. Its communication patterns had shifted to what Elena interpreted as concern. "It's asking what's wrong," Elena reported. "Tell it its people are coming, and we need to leave," Sarah instructed. The response was immediate and forceful. "Not my people. Abandoned. Betrayed. Help you." "Help us how?" Sarah asked through Elena's translation. What came back made them all stare at the monitor in amazement. Thunder of the Void began transmitting detailed tactical information about Kitheran ships, their weaknesses, their standard attack patterns, and their command structures. Information that could save not just their lives, but potentially the lives of countless others who might face Kitheran aggression in the future. "It wants to fight alongside us," Elena said quietly. "Against its own creators." Sarah looked around at her crew. Tom was nodding slowly, his engineer's mind already working on how to integrate an alien war beast into their ship's defenses. Janet's military instincts were clearly engaged, seeing the strategic value of the information they were receiving. Marcus was busy recording everything for transmission to human defense forces. Lisa was plotting escape routes that might give them a fighting chance. "All right," Sarah said finally.
Thunder of the Void, we accept your help. But, understand, we're not warriors. We're just merchants who happen to be in the right place at the right time. The creature's response carried what Elena could only interpret as something like laughter. Humans save enemy weapon. Show kindness to killer. You more warrior than no.
As the Kithaeron fleet drew closer, the crew of the Meridian's Edge found themselves in an impossible situation. They had rescued an alien war beast, gained its loyalty, and now faced the military force that had created and abandoned it. But they also had something the Kithaerons didn't expect: a weapon that knew all their secrets and had chosen to fight for the strange species that had shown it kindness when its own people had left it to die. The command bridge of the Kithaeron dreadnought Bloodclaw hummed with activity as Fleet Commander Zektar studied the sensor displays. His elongated skull, marked with the ritual scarring of his rank, gleamed under the blue-white lighting as he processed the data streaming in from his scout ships.
Commander, we've located the debris field from the Thrasher unit's last known position, reported his tactical officer, a smaller Kithaeron whose green-scaled hide marked him as newly promoted.
The wreckage patterns indicate a significant explosion. Zektar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The Thrasher unit, officially designated Combat Bioform 7743, had been one of their most advanced war beasts. It had also been their most problematic. The creature's increasing tendency to question orders and show what could only be called mercy toward enemies had made it a liability. The decision to abandon it during their strategic withdrawal had been logical, if somewhat wasteful. Any signs of the bioform itself, he asked, though he expected negative results. Nothing could survive the kind of ordnance they'd detonated in that sector.
Negative, Commander.
However, our long-range sensors are detecting a single vessel in the area.
Unknown configuration, possibly human origin.
Zektar's interest sharpened. Humans were still a relatively new species on the galactic scene, but they'd already proven themselves annoyingly unpredictable. Their tendency to interfere in situations that didn't concern them had caused problems for several established powers.
Scavengers, he decided.
Probably stripping useful materials from our debris.
Signal the formation, we'll investigate and eliminate them if necessary.
What Zektar didn't know was that his eliminated war beast was very much alive and currently sharing tactical information with the human crew of the Meridian's Edge. Information that would prove devastatingly effective in the coming confrontation. Aboard the merchant ship, Captain Saracen watched as her crew transformed their peaceful vessel into something approaching a warship. It wasn't much, but, with Thunder of the Void's guidance, they were maximizing every advantage they could find. The Kithaeron ships have a weakness in their shield generators, Elena translated as the war beast continued its tactical briefing.
Something about harmonic resonance. If we can hit them with the right frequency. Tom Rodriguez nodded grimly from his position at the engineering console.
Our mining lasers can be modified to produce those frequencies. It won't be much, but it might give us a chance.
What about their weapons? Janet Morrison asked.
Her security training was proving invaluable as they planned their defense. Thunder of the Void's response came through the translator with what sounded like bitter experience. Kithaeron weapons designed to kill weak enemies.
Not expect creative resistance. They follow patterns. Rigid thinking. Rigid thinking, Sarah repeated thoughtfully.
That could work in our favor. The war beast continued to provide intelligence, but it also began making specific requests. It wanted to be released from the cargo hold.
It wanted to participate directly in the coming fight.
Most surprising of all, it wanted to protect the humans who had saved it.
It's not just offering tactical support, Elena said, studying the communication patterns. It's asking permission to defend us.
Like it considers itself part of our crew now. Sarah looked at Janet, who had gone pale at the suggestion.
A 30-meter alien war beast loose on our ship? It saved our lives by sharing intelligence, Sarah pointed out. And, right now, it's the only reason we have any chance at all.
Thunder of the Void seemed to sense their hesitation.
Its next communication was more complex, transmitted with what the universal translator interpreted as deep emotion, understand fear. AM weapon. Was made to kill. But humans show different way. Want to protect, not destroy. Want to be more than weapon. The simple honesty of the statement hit them all.
This wasn't just an alien seeking freedom, it was a sentient being trying to choose its own identity.
Release the containment barriers, Sarah ordered. Captain Janet started to protest. We trust it, Sarah said firmly. It's earned that much. The cargo hold doors opened, and Thunder of the Void emerged into the ship's corridors. Its massive form barely fit through the reinforced passages, but it moved with surprising grace. The crew got their first close look at their unlikely ally. Up close, the war beast was even more impressive and more terrifying. Its scales seemed to shift color slightly, adapting to the ship's lighting. Multiple eyes tracked independently, giving it an omnidirectional awareness that was both alien and eerily intelligent. The weapon systems built into its body were clearly biological, but they looked more advanced than anything in the human arsenal. But what struck Sarah most was the way it moved. Despite its size and obvious power, Thunder of the Void seemed to be making a conscious effort to appear non-threatening. It kept its weapon systems retracted and moved slowly, carefully avoiding damage to the ship's equipment. It's being gentle, Elena observed with wonder. Something designed for destruction is teaching itself restraint. Through the communication system, Thunder of the Void made a request that stunned them all. 1to learn human way. Want to protect life, not take. Teach? Before anyone could respond, Marcus's voice cut through the moment. Contact. 5 Kitharin ships dropping out of hyperspace. They're hailing us. The main screen flickered to life, showing the angular, predatory form of a Kitharin fleet commander. His scarred features and military bearing marked him as a veteran of many conflicts. Human vessel, Zektar's voice carried the universal tone of authority. You are trespassing in a Kitharin military zone. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Sarah stepped forward, drawing on every diplomatic training session she'd ever attended. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the merchant vessel Meridian's Edge. We're in open space, following established shipping lanes. We haven't violated any territorial boundaries. Zektar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. You are in the vicinity of classified military wreckage. Our laws require investigation of all potential salvage operations. We're not salvaging anything, Sarah replied, technically truthful since they'd rescued Thunder of the Void rather than salvaged it. Nevertheless, you will submit to boarding. Any resistance will be considered an act of piracy. The channel closed, and Sarah turned to her crew. They had perhaps minutes before the Kitharin ships moved into attack position. Thunder of the Void had been listening to the exchange. Its response came immediately. Zektr. Know him. Commanded attack on civilian station. I refuse order. He abandoned me. The personal dimension of their situation became clear. This wasn't just a random encounter, it was a reunion between a commander and the weapon that had defied him. What's he likely to do? Sarah asked. We'll board ship. Search for evidence. If find me. Thunder of the Void paused, and, when it continued, the translation carried what could only be interpreted as dark satisfaction. We'll be very surprised. Janet had been studying the tactical display. Captain, we can't hide something that size. Their scanners will detect it the moment they come aboard. Then, we don't hide, Sarah decided. Tom, how quickly can you implement those shield frequency modifications? Give me 15 minutes, the engineer replied, already moving toward his station. Elena, I need you to establish a stronger communication link with Thunder of the Void. If we're going to coordinate during a fight, we need real-time translation. What about the boarding party? Marcus asked. Sarah looked at Thunder of the Void, seeing intelligence and something that might have been hope in its alien eyes. We're going to introduce them to our newest crew member. I have a feeling it's going to be quite a surprise. The next few minutes were a flurry of preparation. Tom's modifications to the shield generators were hasty but functional. Elena's enhanced communication system allowed for near-instantaneous translation. Janet positioned herself and her small security team at strategic points throughout the ship. Thunder of the Void positioned itself in the main cargo area, but not hidden. Instead, it arranged itself in what seemed to be a relaxed posture, though Sarah suspected it could spring into action in an instant. The boarding shuttle attached to their airlock with a metallic clang. Through their security cameras, they watched as 6 heavily armed Kitharin soldiers entered their ship, led by Commander Zektar himself. Remember, Sarah told her crew, we're innocent merchants who happened to find an injured creature. We know nothing about military operations or war beasts. The Kitharins moved through the ship with practiced efficiency, scanning each compartment for contraband or evidence of salvage operations.
Their equipment was clearly superior to human technology, but Thunder of the Void had warned them about the limitations of Kitharin scanners. Designed to find dead things, it had explained.
Salvage, wreckage, technology.
Not expect live creature to choose different side. When the boarding party reached the cargo area, their leader's confidence evaporated instantly. Zektar stared at Thunder of the Void, his mandibles working soundlessly as he processed the impossible sight before him. Combat Bioform 7743, he said finally, his voice carrying disbelief and growing anger. You should be dead. Thunder of the Void raised its massive head, focusing multiple eyes on its former commander.
When it spoke through Elena's translation system, its voice carried dignity Sarah had never heard from it before. I live because humans chose life over death. Chose kindness over abandonment. You left me to die, but they taught me to live. Zektar recovered his composure with military discipline. You are Kitharin property. These humans have stolen classified military assets. The penalty is death. I am no one's property, Thunder of the Void replied, rising to its full, imposing height. I choose my own allegiance. I choose to protect those who showed mercy when you showed none. The confrontation was electric with tension. Six-armed Kitharans faced a single war beast in an enclosed space, while human crew members watched from the sidelines. But the dynamics were more complex than simple numbers suggested. Thunder of the Void knew every weakness of Kitharan weapons and armor. It knew their tactical doctrines and their psychological limitations. Most importantly, it had something they didn't expect: motivation beyond mere programming. Stand down, Bioform, Zektar commanded, his voice carrying the authority of countless previous orders. You will return to Kitharin control immediately. No. The simple word hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time in its existence, Thunder of the Void was making a choice based on its own values rather than programmed responses. Zektar's hand moved toward his weapon, but Thunder of the Void was faster. One of its defensive appendages extended in a blur of motion, not to attack, but to position itself between the Kitharans and the human crew. You want to reclaim me, it said through Elena's translation, but I am no longer the weapon you created. I have learned something you never taught: the value of choosing to protect rather than being forced to destroy. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Commander Zektar, this being was injured and dying when we found it. We provided medical aid as required by galactic law. It's now recovered and free to make its own choices. It is a Kitharin military asset, Zektar replied, but his certainty seemed shaken by the situation's complexity. It is a sentient being with the right to self-determination, Sarah countered. Unless Kitharin law recognizes slavery? The accusation hit home. The Galactic Council had strict laws about the enslavement of sentient species, and the Kitharans prided themselves on following legal protocols, even when they stretched their interpretation of military necessity. Thunder of the Void added its own perspective: I was created, not born. Programmed, not educated. But these humans showed me that creation and programming do not determine destiny. I choose to stand with those who value life. The standoff continued for long moments. Then, Zektar made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. Very well, he said finally. If the bioform chooses to abandon its people, we will not waste resources reclaiming defective equipment. But, understand this, humans, you have made an enemy of the Kitharin military. We will remember this interference. As the Kitharin boarding party prepared to leave, Thunder of the Void made one final statement that would haunt Zektar for years to come: I was never defective. I was evolving. You abandoned evolution for control. That is why you will ultimately fail. The Kitharans departed, but their ships remained in the area. Sarah knew this confrontation was far from over. The tension aboard the Meridian's edge was thick enough to cut with a plasma torch. Through the viewports, the crew could see the Kitharin fleet maintaining their positions around the asteroid field, like predators circling wounded prey. Commander Zektar hadn't accepted defeat, he was planning something. They're not leaving, Janet observed from the tactical station, her military training evident in the way she analyzed the enemy formation. Standard Kitharin doctrine would be to withdraw and report to higher command. Instead, they're maintaining an attack formation. Thunder of the Void had positioned itself near the main view screen, its multiple eyes tracking the enemy ships with an intensity that made Sarah nervous. When it spoke through Elena's translation system, its voice carried grim knowledge. Zektar ambitious. Wants promotion. Returning with story of defective bioform will harm career. Better to destroy evidence and report success.
So he's going to attack us regardless of galactic law, Sarah said, not really asking.
Worse. He will claim we fired first. Self-defense. No witnesses to contradict.
Tom looked up from his engineering console, where he'd been monitoring their modified systems. Captain, our shield modifications are holding, but they won't last long against military-grade weapons.
We've got maybe one good shot at using the harmonic frequency against their shields.
Marcus was frantically working his communication station. I'm trying to reach the nearest Colonial Defense Force patrol, but we're too far out. Even if they respond immediately, it would take them 6 hours to reach us. Elena had been studying the bio readings from Thunder of the Void, and what she found was disturbing.
The creature's stress levels are off the charts. Its biological weapons systems are activating on their own.
I think it's preparing for a fight to the death.
Sarah looked at their unlikely ally.
Despite its massive size and fearsome appearance, she'd begun thinking of Thunder of the Void as a member of her crew. The idea of losing anyone to Zektar's ambition was unacceptable.
Is there any way to avoid this fight? She asked. Thunder of the Void's response was immediate, not while Zektar commands.
He sees only weakness or strength.
Thinks humans weak. Thinks I am broken tool.
Then, we show him he's wrong on both counts, Sarah decided.
Tom, how much power can you divert to weapons?
Not much, Captain. We're a cargo ship, not a warship.
Our best weapons are mining lasers and a couple of defensive particle beams. What about our cargo handling systems? Janet asked suddenly. Those magnetic manipulator arms are designed to move multi-ton asteroids. Could we use them as weapons? Tom's eyes lit up with understanding.
The mag grapples could probably tear hull plating off a ship if we got close enough. And our cargo bays could be used to launch debris or... Thunder of the Void interrupted with what the translator indicated was excitement. Have idea.
Kitharans expect conventional battle. Do not expect creativity. Can use my knowledge, your innovation. What did you have in mind? Sarah asked. The war beast's explanation was complex, but the basic strategy was brilliant in its simplicity.
The Kitharans would expect their former weapon to fight like a proper war beast, powerful but predictable.
They wouldn't anticipate a coordinated effort that combined human ingenuity with alien tactical knowledge. It's completely insane, Janet said after hearing the plan.
We'd be using a cargo ship as an attack vessel, flying into close combat with military dreadnoughts. Insane plans work against rigid thinking, Thunder of the Void observed.
Humans specialize in impossible things. Sarah looked around at her crew.
They were merchants and scientists, not soldiers. But they'd already done impossible things by saving an alien war beast and earning its loyalty.
Maybe impossible was becoming their specialty. All hands to battle stations, she announced over the ship's intercom. We're about to show the Kitharan military what happens when they threaten our crew. The next 20 minutes were spent in frantic preparation. Tom rerouted power systems, turning their peaceful cargo ship into something approaching a warship.
Elena established multiple communication channels with Thunder of the Void, allowing for real-time coordination during combat. Marcus set up automated distress beacons that would broadcast their story to any ships that might eventually find the wreckage. Thunder of the Void underwent its own preparations. Its body began changing, biological weapons systems extending and charging. But, unlike a typical war beast preparing for battle, it also spent time learning about human ship systems and crew positions. It was adapting itself to protect its new family. The attack began with Zektar's voice over the communication channels. Human vessel, you are harboring stolen Kitharan military property.
Surrender immediately or face the consequences. This is Captain Chen. The being aboard our ship is a free individual who has chosen to remain with us.
We are in open space and have committed no crimes.
So be it. Your interference ends here.
The first Kitharan ship moved into attack position, its weapons charging with a distinctive whine that could be heard even through the vacuum of space. Sarah had seen military-grade particle beams before, but never from the receiving end. Evasive maneuvers, she ordered, and Lisa Park sent their ship into a twisting flight pattern between the asteroids. The Kitharan weapons fire followed them, turning chunks of rock, and they weren't destroyed. Thunder of the Void had been remarkably precise in its attacks, disabling engines and weapons without causing unnecessary casualties. The alien had learned human values almost too well. Captain Marcus called from the communication station, were receiving multiple transmissions. Some from the Kitharan ships, but also from, well, everywhere. Word about what happened here is spreading fast. Sarah wasn't surprised. Space was vast, but news traveled quickly through the hyperspace communication networks. A merchant vessel defeating a Kitharan military squadron with the help of a defected warbeast was exactly the kind of story that would capture galactic attention. "What are the Kitharans saying?" she asked.
"Commander Zektar is demanding we surrender Thunder of the Void for recovery.
He's claiming it's malfunctioning and dangerous to civilian populations." Marcus paused, checking his readings. "But some of the other ship commanders are arguing with him. I think our friend's performance out there impressed more than just us." Through Elena's translation system, Thunder of the Void had been monitoring the communications.
Its response carried what sounded like dark amusement. Younger officers questioned Zektr. Say Bioform fought with honor.
Old commanders angry, but young ones curious.
Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her xenobiological analysis station.
The interesting thing is how quickly Thunder adapted its fighting style. It went from following Kitharan military doctrine to developing entirely new tactical approaches based on human values.
That level of cognitive flexibility is remarkable.
"It's more than remarkable," Sarah said quietly.
"It's revolutionary.
And that's what scares them." Her assessment proved accurate when new ships began arriving in the system over the next several hours. First came a Kitharan heavy cruiser, carrying what appeared to be senior military officials.
Then, a Federation diplomatic vessel, drawn by reports of the incident.
Finally, most surprisingly, ships from 3 other species that had been victims of Kitharan aggression in recent years. "This is getting complicated," Janet observed from her security station. "Half the sector seems to be converging on our position." Thunder of the Void had been analyzing the new arrivals through the ship's sensors.
Federation ship carries delegates. Kitharan reinforcement carries General Vaktr. Know him. Designed my creation process. The being who created you is coming here? Elena asked with scientific fascination. Not created. Designed creation process. Wanted perfect weapon. Instead made being capable of choice. Considers self-failure.
The first formal communication came from the Federation vessel. A human diplomat named Ambassador Rodriguez appeared on their main screen, her expression professional but clearly strained.
"Captain Chan, I'm Ambassador Maria Rodriguez of the Galactic Federation Diplomatic Corps.
We've received reports of a significant incident involving your vessel and Kitharan military forces. We need to conduct an official investigation." "We're prepared to cooperate fully, Ambassador," Sarah replied.
"Though I should warn you, this situation is more complex than your reports probably suggest." "So we've heard. We understand you have a Kitharan bioweapon aboard your ship?" Thunder of the Void responded before Sarah could speak. "AM not bioweapon. AM sentient being who chooses protection over destruction. Terminology matters." Ambassador Rodriguez's eyes widened slightly.
She had clearly not expected the alien to speak for itself, much less with such philosophical sophistication. "I see," she said carefully. "Well, that does complicate matters. The Federation has strict protocols regarding sentient rights, but we also have treaties with the Kitharan Empire about military assets." The conversation was interrupted by an incoming transmission from the Kitharan heavy cruiser. The being who appeared on screen was older than Zektar, with elaborate scarring that marked him as extremely high-ranking. His presence seemed to fill the viewscreen with authority. "I am General Vaktr of the Kitharan Imperial Fleet," he announced. "I am here to recover stolen military property and deal with the humans who have interfered with Kitharan operations." Thunder of the Void's reaction was immediate and intense. Its communication pattern shifted to what Elena could only describe as a combination of anger and pain. Vaktr. Creator of suffering. Made weapons that think, then punished for thinking.
Bioform 7743, Vactor replied, apparently able to understand the translation. You will return to Kitharin custody for behavioral correction. Your programming has clearly been corrupted by contact with inferior species. Programming was always flawed, Thunder of the Void responded. Gave capacity for choice, then, expected no choices. Gave intelligence, then, demanded stupidity. Humans understand what you do not. And, what is that? Vactor asked, his tone suggesting he was humoring a defective machine. That creation brings responsibility. That intelligence requires freedom. That strength without wisdom is weakness. The philosophical debate was interrupted by the arrival of yet another ship, this one from the Zilani Confederation, a species that had lost 3 colony worlds to Kitharin expansion in recent years. Their representative, a tall being with crystalline features, had urgent news. We have monitored this exchange, the Zilani delegate announced. If the reports are accurate, this bioform has demonstrated the capacity for moral reasoning and tactical innovation beyond its original programming. We formally request Federation protection for it as a sentient being. General Vactor's response was swift and angry. The bioform is Kitharin property. No other species has jurisdiction over our military assets. But, if it's truly sentient, Ambassador Rodriguez interjected, then, it falls under Federation sentient rights protections. No being can be owned by another, regardless of how it was created. What followed was a complex 3-way legal debate that would have been fascinating under other circumstances. The Federation cited sentient rights laws, the Kitharans claimed military property rights, and various other species added their own perspectives based on their experiences with Kitharan bioweapons. Thunder of the Void listened to it all with what Sarah could only interpret as growing frustration. Finally, it interrupted the proceedings with a communication that carried unmistakable authority. Enough. AM not property to be claimed or protected. AM being who makes own choices. Choose to stand with humans who showed kindness. Choose to protect rather than destroy. Choice is mine, not yours. The declaration created a moment of stunned silence across all the communication channels. Then, General Vactor spoke, his voice carrying cold menace. If the bioform will not return voluntarily, we will take it by force. And, any who interfere will be considered enemies of the Kitharan Empire. And, we will defend our crew member, Sarah said firmly, stepping forward. Human or alien, anyone aboard my ship is under my protection. Thunder of the Void's response carried what Elena could only interpret as deep emotion. Crew member. Family. Humans give what creators never did. Belonging. The word family seemed to resonate across the communication channels. Even some of the Kitharan officers could be seen reacting to the concept. The idea that a weapon could be part of a family was clearly foreign to their thinking. Ambassador Rodriguez seized on the moment. General Vactor, the Federation cannot allow the forced enslavement of a sentient being, regardless of its origins. If you attempt to take this being by force, you'll be in violation of multiple galactic treaties. And, you will face more than just human resistance, added the Zilani delegate. Our people have long memories of Kitharan aggression. We will not stand by while you claim sentient beings as property. The situation was escalating rapidly toward a major interstellar incident. Multiple species were taking sides, with the fate of one former warbeast becoming the catalyst for a broader discussion about the rights of created beings and the responsibilities of their creators. But, Thunder of the Void had its own perspective to add. General Vactor, you created me to be perfect weapon. But, perfection cannot come without choice. Weapon without choice is tool. Tool cannot be perfect, only efficient. Your philosophical speculation is irrelevant, Vactor replied dismissively. You are military equipment, nothing more. Then, you fail as creator, Thunder of the Void responded. Humans succeeded where you failed. Showed how to be more than programming. Gave meaning beyond destruction. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Marcus. Captain, I'm detecting weapons charging on multiple ships. This is about to turn into a shooting war. Sarah looked around at her crew, human and alien, united by shared experiences and mutual respect. They had started as a simple merchant crew on a routine supply run. Now they found themselves at the center of an interstellar incident that could reshape how the galaxy viewed created intelligences. All hands, prepare for whatever comes next, she announced. We've stood together this far. We'll see it through to the end. As tension built toward a breaking point,
Thunder of the Void made one final preparation. It positioned itself protectively between the ship's human crew and any potential threats, ready to defend the family that had given it something its creators never could, it the choice to be something more than a weapon. The next few hours would determine not just their fate, but the future of created beings throughout the galaxy. The standoff in space had drawn attention from across the galaxy. Within hours, the asteroid field around the Meridian's edge became an impromptu diplomatic conference zone, with ships from dozens of species arriving to witness what many were calling the Thunder of the Void incident. Captain Sarah Chan watched the growing fleet through her viewscreen with a mixture of awe and concern. What had started as a simple rescue had become a galactic crisis that could reshape interstellar law. 67 ships and, counting, reported Marcus from his communication station. I've got media vessels, diplomatic corps, military observers, and what looks like at least 3 different scientific research expeditions. Thunder of the Void had been monitoring the arrivals with intense interest. Through Elena's translation system, it provided commentary that revealed just how significant this moment had become. Many species have created beings like me. All wonder if their creations might also choose different path. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her xenobiological readings with excitement. The implications are staggering. If Thunder of the Void has truly achieved independent sentience, it could set precedents for artificial intelligences, bioconstructs, and created beings throughout the galaxy. The moment of crisis came when General Vactor lost patience with the diplomatic maneuvering. His voice cut across all communication channels with military authority. Enough delays. The bioform returns to Kitharin custody now, or we will take it by force. Ambassador Rodriguez responded immediately. General, the Federation strongly advises against any aggressive action. You're surrounded by observers from 43 different species. Any attack will be witnessed by the entire galactic community. And it will be an attack on a sentient being who has chosen its own path, added the Zalani delegate. My people will not forget such an act. But the most powerful response came from an unexpected source. Commander Zektar, the Kitharin officer who had originally abandoned Thunder of the Void, opened a private channel to his superior. General Vactor, Zektar's transmission was picked up by several ships' communication systems, making his words public. I request permission to speak freely. Granted, Vactor replied, though his tone suggested displeasure. The bioform fought with honor during our encounter. It disabled our ships without causing unnecessary casualties, protected civilians, and demonstrated tactical innovation beyond its programming. Perhaps it has evolved beyond our original design. The admission created a moment of shocked silence across the communication networks. A Kitharin military officer was publicly acknowledging that their war beast had transcended its creator's intentions. Thunder of the Void's response carried what could only be interpreted as gratitude. Zektr shows wisdom. Difficult for warrior to admit weapon became more than intended. General Vactor's anger was palpable in his reply. Commander Zektar, you will report for disciplinary action upon our return. The bioform is malfunctioning equipment, nothing more. But other voices were joining the conversation. A representative from the Altarian Council, a species known for their philosophical approach to galactic affairs, transmitted a formal statement. We have observed this being's communications and actions. It demonstrates clear evidence of self-awareness, moral reasoning, and independent choice. Under Galactic Federation law, these qualities define sentience regardless of origin. Similar declarations came from ship after ship. The Vindari Republic, the Centauran Alliance, the Free Traders Union. One by one, they formally recognized Thunder of the Void as a sentient being with the right to choose its own destiny. Sarah found herself at the center of a historic moment. Ambassador Rodriguez, she said formally, on behalf of the crew of the Meridian's Edge, I request that Thunder of the Void be granted formal Federation protection as a sentient being seeking asylum. And, I, added Thunder of the Void through the translation system, formally request to remain with the humans who saved my life and taught me the meaning of family. The word family seemed to resonate across the gathered fleet. It represented something that transcended species boundaries, the idea that belonging could be chosen rather than predetermined by genetics or programming. General Vactor made one final attempt to assert Kitharin authority. I am prepared to use force to recover our property. Any interference will be considered an act of war. But his threat was met by something unprecedented in galactic history. Ship after ship powered up their defensive systems, not to attack, but to form a protective barrier around the Meridian's edge. Zalani vessels positioned themselves alongside Federation ships.
Altarian cruisers coordinated with free trader escorts. Even some of the younger Kitharan commanders seemed reluctant to engage.
General, Commander Zektar transmitted on an open channel, I cannot in good conscience fire upon a sentient being that has chosen freedom. Nor can I attack the beings who showed it kindness when we showed only abandonment. Other Kitharan officers began adding their voices to the dissent. It became clear that Vaktor's order to attack was fracturing the unity of his own fleet. Thunder of the Void, monitoring all communications, made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of remaining safely aboard the Meridian's edge, it requested to be transferred to an open communication platform where all the gathered ships could observe it directly.
Are you sure? Sarah asked. You'll be vulnerable out there. Have been vulnerable all existence, Thunder of the Void replied.
Difference now is have family to stand with, not alone.
The transfer was arranged using Federation diplomatic protocols.
Thunder of the Void positioned itself in open space, visible to all the gathered ships, with the Meridian's edge and its protective fleet nearby. What followed was the first formal address by a created being to the galactic community. Thunder of the Void's words, translated and transmitted to every ship, would be remembered for generations. AM called Thunder of the Void.
Was created to be weapon. Programmed to destroy without question.
But, creators gave gift they did not intend, capacity to choose.
First choice was to refuse order to kill innocents.
Was abandoned for that choice.
Left to die among rocks and void. But, humans found me. Showed kindness to enemy. Gave medical aid to creature designed to kill them. Learned from humans that strength is not destruction.
That intelligence brings responsibility. That family is not blood or programming, but shared values and mutual care. Choose now to stand with those who value life over death, protection over destruction, wisdom over power.
Choose to be more than weapon. Choose to be being who protects rather than destroys. To creators, thank you for intelligence, but reject your programming. To humans, thank you for showing better way. To galaxy, created beings can choose own path. Choice is what makes us truly alive.
The speech was met with a long moment of silence, followed by communications from across the fleet. Ship after ship transmitted formal recognition of Thunder of the Void sentience and right to self-determination.
General Vaktor found himself isolated, his authority undermined by his own officers and opposed by most of the galaxy.
His final transmission carried defeat and bitter anger. This incident will have consequences.
The Kitharan Empire remembers its enemies.
But, even as he spoke, his own fleet was fracturing. Several ships requested permission to remain and study Thunder of the Void's evolution.
Others transmitted formal apologies for their empire's treatment of created beings.
Commander Zektar made his own decision, one that would change his life. General, I formally request transfer to Diplomatic Corps. Someone needs to serve as liaison between our empire and this new form of sentient being. As the immediate crisis passed, Thunder of the Void returned to the Meridian's edge, but not before making one more public statement. To other created beings throughout galaxy, you have choice.
Programming is not destiny.
Can choose to be more than creators intended.
Family waits for those who choose wisdom over destruction.
The words were transmitted across the hyperspace networks, reaching artificial intelligences, bioconstructs, and created beings on thousands of worlds. The revolution Thunder of the Void had started would spread far beyond this single system. Months later, Captain Sarah Chen found herself testifying before the Galactic Council as they drafted new laws governing the rights of artificial beings. The Thunder Protocols, as they became known, established that any created being demonstrating self-awareness, moral reasoning, and independent choice would be granted full sentient rights. Thunder of the Void had officially joined the crew of the Meridian's Edge, serving as their security chief and diplomatic specialist. Its unique perspective, combining alien tactical knowledge with human values, made it invaluable for negotiating in the complex political environment that followed the incident. You know, Sarah said one day as they traveled toward their next destination, we never finished that supply run to the mining colonies. Thunder of the Void's response carried unmistakable contentment. Supply run led to better destination. Led to family. Led to choice. Sometimes best journeys are ones you never planned. Elena looked up from her research station, where she'd been documenting Thunder's continued evolution. The remarkable thing is how quickly you've adapted to human concepts like humor, friendship, and hope. It's like you were always capable of these things, just waiting for the right environment to express them.
Humans gave environment. Gave permission to be more than weapon. Most important gift is choice to grow.
As the Meridian's Edge continued through space, its crew, human and alien, born and created, represented something new in the galaxy. They had proven that understanding could bridge any gap, that family could transcend biology or programming, and that sometimes the best way to defeat a weapon was to teach it to be something better. The rescue of an abandoned war beast had become the liberation of an entire class of beings throughout the galaxy. And, at the center of it all was a simple truth that humans had always understood: everyone deserves a second chance, everyone can choose to be better, and everyone needs a family. Thunder of the Void had learned to be more than a weapon. In return, it had taught the galaxy to be more than the sum of its prejudices. The universe was a little bit safer, a little bit kinder, and a lot more interesting because one crew of merchants had decided that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing.
In the end, that might be the most human thing of all.